In this episode, you'll learn some money idioms and expressions that will make your English sound more natural. Time's money, so let's get started. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
If you're a new listener to the podcast, you're very, very welcome. And if you're coming back again, thank you very much. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And together with nearly 50 years of teaching English between us and about 8 years podcasting, we're going to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you?
I'm doing well, Craig. I'm, as ever, raring to go. That means I want to get started. I'm keen. I don't want to wait too long before we start recording this podcast. I am raring to go. And you?
I'm pleased to hear it. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I've been very busy. I'm putting together the finishing touches, which means I'm just finishing a new course I've been creating since August 2021, and I'm nearly there. So there will be some more news soon. The course is for B2 level students. And if you keep following the podcast, I'll keep you up to date. If you want to sign up for the newsletter of Inglés Podcast, you can do that at inglespodcast.com. And I'll also be sending out information in the newsletter.
Oh, Craig, if I'd known that, I would have mentioned it in our last podcast, which was episode 388. Good things to come out of the COVID pandemic. Craig's new course. It's partly as a result of having a bit of time and being obliged to stay indoors during the coronavirus. So an extra point to add to good things to come out of COVID.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very pleased with it. So we'll see if people like it. Let's hope so. Now, we've got a voice message to start this week from Argentina, and it's from Ebiana. And I think this is Ebiana's first voice message.
Hello Reza, hello Craig, how is it going? It's Eviana from Argentina. It's a pleasure to contact with you. I'm a bit shy, but finally I decided to do it. Thinking that time is money, I'm sure that we are rich for all the time you spend preparing, recording and editing all the podcasts. And thinking about money, perhaps talking about it might be a good idea. Thanks for all your work. Keep doing it. Bye-bye.
Well, I'm really pleased that you sent us the voice message, Aviana, and it sounded wonderful. It was very clear. I really liked your pronunciation. I couldn't hear anything that needs improving. Did you, Reza?
Ebiana, not only do I like your pronunciation, but I love your name. What a lovely name, Ebiana.
It is, yeah.
I've never heard that before. Very nice name. Your message was almost perfect, and your pronunciation was fantastic, as we said. But you did say something which wasn't quite right. You said to contact with you. That with shouldn't be there. It's to contact you. You contact a person. There's no preposition. To contact you. What you're probably mixing there is to be in contact with someone. To be in contact with someone. But you didn't say to be in contact. You said to contact. So to contact you, no with.
And thank you very much, Ebiana, for your suggestion to talk about money. We have spoken about money before on several podcasts, but maybe it's a good idea that we focus in this episode on specific money idioms and expressions. Now, for vocabulary, you have to go back to our earlier episodes when we used to mix in a vocabulary section, a grammar section, a phrasal verb, pronunciation. Do you remember that, Reza, when we mixed everything together?
Yes, perhaps those episodes could have been a bit more structured, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so we've learned since then. But if you are interested in general money vocabulary, go back and listen to episodes 12, 23, 24 and 46. All those links are in the show notes to this episode, which you can find at inglespodcast.com/389. And to get to those others, either click on the links or go to inglespodcast.com/12 or 23 or 24 or 46. Now, after Eviana sent us her voice message, she also sent an email with a couple of money stories. And thank you very much. I like those very much. But I could only confirm one of them as actually being true. And it was about Sir Isaac Newton. Now, Sir Isaac Newton, if you haven't heard of him, was a very famous English mathematician, physicist, astronomer, theologian, and author. He was put in charge of the Royal Mint in 1696, and I think it was a connection with marriage. I think his father-in-law was in charge. It was passed on to him, but the Royal Mint makes the money. So in the UK, they made money at the mint, and in those days, the money was made of gold. They had gold coins, and these coins were round, obviously, and flat. And the value of the coin back in the late 17th century was related to its weight, so the weight of the gold. And some people used to file off or take off some of the gold, a small piece of the gold from the coin, and then melt down the gold with heat so the gold became liquid, and then literally they could make some extra money. And this meant that the coins were smaller eventually and they weighed less, so they devalued, they lost value. How did Newton solve this problem? Well, you may notice that many coins have stripes around the edge. We'd say in English that the coins are serrated, which is the same pattern, the same form that you see in kitchen knives, for example, because they can cut. So serrating those coins was Newton's idea to prevent people cutting or taking off, finding off some of the gold and making new coins. I thought that was a really interesting story.
I didn't know it was Newton who invented that.
Me neither.
And what an important invention.
The second story that I could not confirm was also quite funny, so I'll tell you very briefly. Rockefeller, possibly one of the richest men, especially in North American history, he made money by counting matches in a box. Now, match in Spanish is cerilla. Apparently in Mexico it's cerillo, so it's masculine in Mexico. I did not, maybe because more men smoke there, I don't know. Or fósforo, you could say, for matches. So a box of matches that had, for example, 250 matches written on the box. Rockefeller counted each individual match, and if it didn't have 250, he would sue the company. If you sue a company, you take it to court. Demandar in Spanish. So he would sue the company because the product didn't reflect what it said on the box. And that was one way he made money. But I could not confirm that story as being true. But it was interesting.
Wow.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever bought something that says something on the box, on the packet, and you count it to make sure what's inside is true?
I must admit I have.
Me too.
I've done it with tins of sardines. Because they say between 6 and 8. And I'm sure I've had tins of sardines and it was only 5. And I thought, hey, I want my money back. You only give me 5. It said 6 to 8.
Well, go to a lawyer, sue the company. A great way of making money, according to Rockefeller, allegedly. Let's start with our list of money idioms and expressions. Our first one on the list today, money makes the world go round. What do you think that means?
Well, it's true, isn't it? Without money, things don't happen. Money makes the world go round.
Yeah, but the world wouldn't stop going round. You wouldn't stop going on its axis if there was no money.
Oh, that's true. Literally, physically, no. But things would stop happening. Business would stop because business makes money. If it doesn't make money, there is no business. And if one business closes, another will close. So we need money. Money generates money. And without money, people aren't going to do things. So things don't happen. Money makes the world go round.
I think that's very true. The second expression which was also in Ebiana's message, time is money, which I do not agree with. I happen to think, and maybe listeners, you might agree with me, especially if you are a little older, I think time is more valuable than money because you can replace money, but you can't replace time.
That's true. That's true. Mind you, if you're lying on a psychologist's couch,
As I was last night.
were you?
No, I'm joking. I should be, but I'm not.
If you're lying on their couch, that's like a bed, but like a medical bed, a psychologist use, and they're talking about something and you don't think it's very relevant, you might be thinking, hey, time is money. Let's talk about my problems. Like, oh, no, let's talk about your mother. And you're thinking, well, forget about my mother. That's not my problem. No, but we need to talk about that. You might well be thinking, hey, time is money. This psychologist is charging me 80 euros an hour. I don't want to talk about silly things. So you could say in certain cases, time is literally money.
Especially if you're paying somebody by the hour. If you're exchanging the money for their time, then definitely time is money. Absolutely.
Now, a verb I'm sure most of you probably do know, or you should know, is to pay. Pagar, pay. But what if I put the preposition up after it? Craig, for you, what's the difference between to pay and to pay up?
To pay up is a phrasal verb, first of all, and when you use pay as a normal verb, verbo principal, you might say in Spanish, you would use the preposition for. So you'd pay for something. Pay for the beer, pay for the meal. But if you pay up, that means to pay a debt in full. If you owe money, for example, last week I borrowed 50 euros from Reza. Reza might say, come on, Craig, pay up. Where's that 50 euros? He wants me to return the money to him, so he tells me to pay up.
Another phrasal verb plus preposition, is to pay someone, pay a person, off. If you pay someone off, you haven't paid them in a fair and legal way. It's not that they've given you a service for a certain price, which was agreed, all legal, and you paid them. It's not that. If you pay someone off, it means you bribe them. B-R-I-B-E. You pay them illegally. They've done something for you which they weren't supposed to do, and you've paid them money for it. For example, they might be a politician, and I'm a rich businessman, and I say to this politician, could you change the law so that it's more favorable for my company? And he says, well, maybe, I might bring up a question in Parliament. We might change the law, but maybe you should give me $1 million. So I've paid him off. I've bribed him. I've given him money to do something which he shouldn't have done.
And if you're a Spanish speaker, to bribe in Spanish is sobornar. Our next expression is to bring home the bacon. Now, bacon, you must know, is food. And when we earn money, we put food on the table. We feed our families, we feed ourselves. So if you say to somebody, I'm the one who brings home the bacon in my family, that means you are the person who earns the money, who pays the bills, who buys the food. Reza, who brings home the bacon in your family?
Coco, I think. I never ask him where the money comes from, but he just
or
arrives
where the bacon comes from.
He puts it on the table.
Does Coco like bacon?
He prefers to bring home bacon more than money, actually. Craig, it sounds pretty obvious if I say money doesn't grow on trees, you know. But what do I really mean when I say money doesn't grow on trees?
It means it's valuable. Don't waste it. And something my mum used to say if I wanted something, or maybe, for example, I forgot to turn off the lights and I wasted electricity, she might say, Craig, turn off the lights. Money doesn't grow on trees. We have to be aware of the money we're spending. And I used to copy that expression when I was very young and say to my sister, if my sister asked for an apple or another orange, I would say, come on, Steph, oranges don't grow on trees, you know, or apples don't grow on trees. So I would use it in a silly way. But yeah, obviously money doesn't go on trees. You have to be careful how you spend it.
Another thing that certainly doesn't grow on trees is an egg. But what is a nest egg? Craig, do you have a nest egg?
I do. I have a small amount of money for retirement because I haven't been working in Spain all my life. And although I have been paying tax since I've lived here, I won't be getting a pension from the UK. And my Spanish pension when I retire won't be very big. So I have a nest egg to help me when I retire.
Oh, so you've been saving up for a rainy day.
I've been saving up for a rainy day.
So he isn't really worried about the rain. That idiom means that he's saving up money now because he's going to need it in the future.
But let me ask you this. Do you think we should have a little nest egg, a nice little nest egg for when we retire? Or should we spend our money before we get too old? Because now we're healthy, we can enjoy it. Maybe when we're old, we won't enjoy the money we have.
That's a very good question. In fact, I could say that's the $1 million question. What should you do? In my opinion, you should save up for a rainy day, but not if it means living an uncomfortable life now. So you should save up a bit of money, but make sure you have enough to enjoy yourself now. Would you agree?
Absolutely. So what you're saying is diversification. Save some for a rainy day. Keep a nest egg, but maybe keep a smaller nest egg and enjoy some of the money now as well. Speaking of enjoying money now, money that you spend on small things, you could call pocket money. This is very common with children. Sometimes before children are able to work, their parents or their grandparents or their aunts or uncles give them some money that they can buy some chocolate with or buy small things with, and that's called pocket money. Did you get pocket money as a child?
I did. It went up a little bit as I got older. I think it got to the grand sum of up to, I think I got £5 a week.
Well, you were rich over there in Belfast. I got 50p from my grandmother. That was my pocket money.
Oh, I got 50p from my grandmother as well. But I'm talking about like when I was about 19 or 20 years old.
Oh, well.
I got £5 a week, which isn't that much.
So that was your beer money. That was the money you spent on beer.
And pretty much that's where it went. So beer money is a small amount of money, which you might spend on beer, but could be spent on other things.
I did a paper round when I was 15, 16, because my parents had a paper shop. So I used to deliver papers early in the morning before school, and I got some pocket money, a small amount of money for delivering papers.
Now, Craig, I know that you've done and you do various things in your life, but what's your bread and butter? What do you live off?
Well, my bread and butter used to be English teaching at the British Council, but I got made redundant this summer, so I don't have a teaching job at the moment in the classroom. My bread and butter is online teaching. So from the Mansion Inglés, the courses that we sell there, and hopefully this course I'm creating now will help to put some more butter on the bread. So my bread and butter is at the moment only based on internet teaching. What's your bread and butter?
I guess it's a mixture of online teaching and face-to-face. Because, like Craig, I've worked at the British Council for quite a while. I'm still there for the minute, and touch wood, maybe a year or two more. And so teaching in whatever shape or form tends to be my bread and butter.
Reza, do you think teaching is money for old rope?
No, I don't. Some people say that, but I think they're wrong.
What does it mean, though?
Well, old rope. Rope is cuerda. Cuerda vieja? Well, it doesn't really mean that, of course, does it? It's an idiom, so the meaning of the words is not their real meaning. If you say something's money for old rope, it's receiving money for doing very little or something really easy. Like, who would give money to buy old rope? Old rope's not very useful. It's going to break, isn't it? So you wouldn't pay money for that. So if you get money for old rope, you've been given money for doing little. I don't think so. I think teaching requires a lot of preparation and dedication.
It's an interesting expression because apparently on ships, and many of our expressions and idioms do come from the sea, but rope is obviously, or used to be used a lot in ships for the sails and raising and lowering the sails. But the ropes used to wear out, and small pieces of that rope fell down onto the wood floor or deck, we say, the deck of the ship, D-E-C-K. And when the ship came into harbour, women and children specifically would collect these pieces of rope that fell down, and they would use those very small pieces to make other things from. And I think that's where the expression comes from, money for old rope.
Ah. And what do you think about teaching? Is it money for old rope for you, or is it hard work?
I wouldn't use the expression money for old rope. I don't think it's hard work either, because if it's something that you enjoy, and I do enjoy teaching, then it's like they say, if you enjoy what you do, you won't work a day in your life. So I think I'm really lucky to enjoy teaching, and it's not hard for me, but it also takes effort. It's not easy, so it's not money for old rope, because that implies it's a very easy thing to do and doesn't take any effort. That's not true either.
And do you think teachers need to be paid well?
Yes, because unfortunately in some academies in Spain, and I'm sure in other countries too, they are paid peanuts.
Peanuts to eat?
Not literally. They don't give them nuts to eat as payment, but the expression, if you pay someone peanuts, that means you pay them very, very little. Imagine somebody doing a very menial job, a very simple job, washing dishes in a bar, for example, or maybe waiting tables or doing something that isn't a high salary job. You could say, oh, they pay me peanuts.
Craig, recently you were made redundant, you said earlier.
Yes.
Did you get a golden handshake?
No, I did get a small amount of money for leaving after 24 years teaching at the British Council, but it wasn't golden and nobody shook my hand. So I didn't even get a handshake, but I must admit that they were very good. The British Council were very good during the pandemic. They kept us paid and they kept us in a salary, so I'm not complaining. But no, I don't think the money I received was a golden handshake, because do you agree that a golden handshake implies a lot of money, a large sum?
Yes. So the idiom means you get a lot of money whenever they have to make you redundant, whenever you lose your job. They give you a large sum of money to say sorry. A golden handshake.
So yeah, the redundancy money I did receive has not made me well off. And that expression, to be well off, means to be rich, wealthy, W-E-A-L-T-H-Y. If you are well off, then you have extra money, you're quite rich. We could also say well-to-do. If you're well-to-do, then you have a high income and you have a high standard of living.
There's more ways you can say someone is rich in a more informal, in a colloquial way. We could say that somebody's loaded. So to load something is to put a lot of weight on something. So if you're loaded, imagine you've got a lot of weight because you've got so much money that it weighs a lot. So you could say he's loaded with money, he's really rich. Or he's rolling in it. Imagine you got so much money, physically the money, on the floor that you're like rolling around in it, that you've got so much of it, you're rolling in it. Or you could be stinking rich. To stink means to smell really bad. So you got so much money that you smell of money. You're stinking rich. They're all colloquial ways to say very rich.
And you can see these words in the show notes. This vocabulary is at inglespodcast.com/389. Of course, there are opposites to these expressions for being wealthy and rich. You could obviously say poor, which is the opposite of rich, or broke, B-R-O-K-E, means you have no money. Or there's a phrasal verb, hard up. If you're hard up for cash, you don't have a lot of money. Or you could also say to be a bit short. That doesn't mean that you are physically short. That means you're short on cash. You don't have a lot of money. I'm really sorry, Reza. I can't give you back that 50 euros. I'm a bit short this month. I've just been made redundant.
Good excuse. I can't argue with that excuse. And he's not making it up, it's true. Now, some people have plenty of money. They're rolling in it, but they spend it in a stupid way. You would say that they have more money than sense. So if someone went to a restaurant and they said, what have you got to drink? They say, oh, sorry, normally we would have a lot of variety, but today we've got very bad warm beer. That's all we've got, and it costs 50 euros a glass. And this person's quite rich, quite affluent. They say, okay, I'll have a glass of that. I would say you've got more money than sense. Who's going to pay 50 euros for a warm glass of beer? You've got more money than sense. Yet it's not an intelligent way to spend your money. Craig, have you ever been called a big spender?
Not to my face. maybe behind my back, but it is quite positive, isn't it? Unless it's used ironically.
Ah, yes, that's the
it
thing.
can be used ironically. For example, a big spender is obviously someone who spends big, who spends a lot of money, invites people for expensive champagne and the best food. But let's say, for example, I went for a drink with Reza. Reza said, oh, Craig, I'm really sorry. You've just lost your job. Let me buy you a beer. I could say, oh, last of the big spenders, Reza. Last of the big spenders.
Because I got him one beer. And then I said, and now I've got to go. I got him one small beer.
But make it a small one, because I've got to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and as Craig said, we could say the last of the big spenders. That's a really common way of being sarcastic, isn't it?
And if Reza did that and he bought me a beer, and he has done on many, many occasions, then he often picks up the tab. To pick up, the phrasal verb, the tab. The tab would be the bill. Very often when you go to a bar in the UK, if you're a regular, if the people know you, you don't necessarily have to pay for the drink when you receive it. You can ask the bar staff to put it on your tab. They will write down the money you spend, and when you leave the pub, you pay your tab. So the tab is the amount of money you spend during a day or maybe during a month. You can have a monthly tab. Have you ever had a tab for more than one day somewhere?
I've never had a tab that wasn't paid that same day because I'll be honest, I just don't trust them to get it right. It's not that I think they would lie to me, but what if they get it wrong? What if they make a mistake and you think you owe them about, I don't know, 60 euros on your tab, but they say, yeah, that'll be 150 euros. And you might say, but hold on, I'm sure I didn't spend that. Well, we have it written down. What are you going to do? Then you're going to have to pay the money. So I don't want to risk it.
I think it's risky on both sides because you might think that you have to have a good relationship with the person who owns the bar because they might suspect that you would leave the area and not pay it and they never see you again. That's also a problem.
Now, Craig, you can pay a bill by picking up the tab. What if I say to foot the bill? Does that mean to kick it with your foot? What does that mean?
It doesn't mean to kick it. It's an idiom that goes way back to the 1500s because when you add up a bill, then you start from the bottom sometimes and you go up. So there used to be an expression to foot up a bill, which is to go from the bottom of the page and add the totals together to arrive at the bill, the total bill. So you're adding up a column of numbers from the bottom, and that's why it's to foot the bill, because you're beginning at the bottom at your foot and you're going up.
Craig, do you think in Holland, when a group of people go out, do you think there's going to be one generous person who will foot the bill, will pick up the tab for everybody?
Well, it's interesting that you mention Holland because I'm sure you know that people who come from Holland are called Dutch people, D-U-T-C-H. And the Dutch and the English have got a history of not exactly getting on well together. If you go back to the 17th century when the British Empire was expanding, the Dutch were sailing to different countries and colonizing parts of the world. They weren't exactly good friends, so they criticized each other. Now, if you think of a typical English gentleman offering to buy a lady a meal or a glass of wine or a glass of champagne, the British criticized the Dutch, and the expression in English to go Dutch means that everybody pays for their own bill. Everybody pays separately. So that's also similar to having Dutch courage, because before battle, the British accused the Dutch of needing to drink in order to fight them. So if you have Dutch courage that gives you extra courage because of the alcohol, that goes back to centuries ago when the British and the Dutch were fighting together.
Yeah. And Craig, can you speak double Dutch?
I've been accused of speaking double Dutch many times. What does that mean?
If someone says you're speaking double Dutch, it means I can't understand you. Whatever you're saying is too complicated. It doesn't make sense. I guess centuries ago when the English listened to the Dutch, they couldn't understand what they were saying. So it's meant as a criticism. If you're speaking double Dutch, you're not making sense. People can't understand you.
Although interestingly, these days not many English people speak Dutch, but Dutch are wonderful English speakers. Going back to money for a second, the expression to be on the payroll, Payroll, means to be employed. So if you have a company, you might ask somebody, how many people are on your payroll? Which means how many people do you employ? How many people are you paying? What's your staff? What's the size of your staff? To be on the payroll.
Craig, have you ever been caught out? Have you ever been deceived by a money-making racket? Have you ever been the victim of a money-making scheme?
Thankfully, no, I haven't. I have lost money at a casino, for example, and people have said to me, why did you go to a casino? That's pouring money down the drain.
Well, you got the money and you put it down the drain is where the dirty water goes.
Exactly.
So you've lost it.
Where the waste water goes. So if you waste money, you can say you pour it down the drain. Pour. To pour money down the drain is to waste it.
And a money-making racket, R-A-C-K-E-T, it isn't something you use to play tennis, no. A money-making racket or scheme is a project, an idea, which isn't really legal. It uses deception. Quite often, money-making rackets give you false information. Quite often, they target old people. They'll convince them that they're buying something which they never really get.
Reza, have you ever thrown good money after bad?
Yes, I have, I'm afraid to say. And this expression is kind of related to pour money down the drain. If you pour money down the drain, you've lost it in a stupid way. It's gone. And if you throw good money after bad, can you imagine that you put even more money down the drain? Well, that'd be really stupid. So to throw good money after bad means you've wasted money. You've poured it down the drain. You've got a chance to stop now. Don't spend any more. Yet you decide to spend even more money in the same way, which you're going to lose. So that is throwing good money after bad. I've done that. You know how whenever you're convinced that something's really good and you must have it. So I remember buying this product, this type of pate, which someone recommended to me. And I bought it. I didn't like it at all. But I was convinced, it must have been a bad one. It was really expensive. And I looked at the expiry date, and it had about a week left. I thought, oh, stupid me. I should have bought a one which wasn't so old. A couple of weeks later, I bought another one. And it was also terrible. This friend said, oh, isn't that the greatest pate you've ever had? I was like, no, I don't really like it, actually. He said, oh, you must have bought a bad one. So I bought a third one.
Really?
And same taste, I didn't like it. So I finally got the message that, okay, I don't like this pate. I hate it, in fact. So I threw good money after bad. 3 times I bought something that I didn't like, thinking, no, but the third time I'll like it. But no, I didn't like it. I should have learned my lesson.
A similar thing happened to me when I was younger, but it cost me a lot more money than a few tins of pate. I bought a car second-hand, and I bought it off someone who I trusted, mistakenly trusted, and I had problems with the engine, and I took it back to the same person. He says, oh, don't worry, it's, you have to pay me, blah, 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 and I'll fix this. And I paid him more money, and then something else went wrong. I took him back to the same guy. I said, yeah, we need to get a new one of this and then it's going to be perfect. So I kept throwing good money after bad, and in the end, I realized that the car was really not worth it. I was throwing my money down the drain, and I sold it.
And I imagine you're no longer friends with that person.
No, didn't speak to him again after that. So what have we learned in this lesson? Let's go back and revise these expressions connected to money. Money makes the world go round.
To pay up.
To pay someone off. To bribe someone.
To bring home the bacon.
Money doesn't grow on trees, you know.
A nest egg.
I'm saving up for a rainy day.
Pocket money or beer money.
Teaching is our bread and butter.
Money for old rope.
If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys.
A golden handshake. Hopefully that's what you get when you're made redundant.
If you get a golden handshake, you're probably well off.
In other words, more informally, you're loaded, rolling in it, stinking rich.
And probably not hard up or a bit short on cash.
If you spend €50 on a bad warm beer, you have more money than sense.
Or maybe you're a big spender.
If you're a generous person, you might pick up the tab or foot the bill for everybody else.
But if you want your other half, your date, or your friends to pay for themselves, then you have to go Dutch.
Be careful about people contacting you online to say, pay me €50 and you'll soon make 5 million. It doesn't sound right. Sounds like a money-making racket to me.
How many people are on the payroll at your company?
And don't be like Craig and his old car. Don't pour money down the drain. And whenever you keep getting tricked, don't continue to throw good money after bad.
Especially if you like pate. And now it's your turn to practice your English. We would love to hear from you, especially to know where you're from, any comments you have on the podcast, or any ideas for future episodes. You can contact us by voice. Go to speakpipe.com/Inglespodcast.
Or if you don't want to record your voice yet, maybe you're a bit shy, you could send us an email. You could write to craig@inglespodcast.com or belfastreza@gmail.com.
On the Mansion Inglés website, not only will you find free content to help you improve your English, like courses and listenings and other material, but there's also a store where we have products and courses that you can buy. Go to store.mansioningles.net.
As always, we'd like to thank all the people who help us voluntarily by supporting the podcast on Patreon, Patreon, and they voluntarily, because they want to, donate money to us, and we're very grateful. They pay $1.20 per month. That 20 cents is to cover the VAT, the value-added tax. And as a thank you, we give them instant access to recent audio transcriptions. If you're interested, if you would like to get that access and just generally help out the podcast, we'd be very grateful. Why not have a look at the link in the show notes, which is patreon.com/Inglespodcast.
Unfortunately, we don't have time to thank everyone who is currently on our Patreon scheme and supporting us, but we will say hi and thank you to the latest supporter, Arantxa, who joined us recently. Thank you, Arantxa, and thank you to everybody who is supporting us on Patreon.
You know what I'm thinking, Craig? I'm wondering what's on next week's episode.
Well, what a coincidence. I was just about to tell people what's happening next week. We're going to speak about coincidences. We will share some of our coincidences, and it's featuring another true story from longtime friend of the show, Jose, who sent us another story. So we look forward to that next week. Thank you for listening this week. We hope you have a wonderful week. Until next time, it's goodbye from Reza.
And cheerio from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.